Protests cover the streets all over the country complaining about Elon Musk exposing fraud. It's these same people screaming on the streets are the same people who didn't care about the economy when we shut it down for COVID. They had no problems doing that, taking businesses out of business. Even today, businesses are going out of business. I mean, it's crazy. In between class, they listen to their college professor who's gay, and then they go in between class and they have a nose ring and they're posting on Instagram and they get all the news too because people can't believe they're trying to give advice. They get a check from mommy and daddy, and they go to class, and that's the extent of their entire life. I mean, and they're here to tell us about tariffs because now they're financial gurus. At face value, I understand how people would think that tariffs will hurt, the prices of things, which it will. We know it will, but if you look at why we're doing it, they think because tariff equals higher prices, add. I mean, it's as simple as that to them. But what they forget to remember is that the reason the tariffs are being implemented, and this is not a new method, this method comes from Alexander Hamilton. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but entrepreneurs are not just going to give up and then charge more and then that's the end of the story. What they're going to do is use our competitive capitalistic system to which we live in to then find other means and ways of producing those products for a more cost-effective way. And part of that will be manufacturing things back in our country, which is the main operational reason why Trump is implementing the tariffs. I mean, so many discussions that I hear on the internet are like, tariffs. What were tariffs? The history of tariffs. They cause products to cost more. End of story. They're stupid. Goodbye. It's like, what? And then they go into this whole dialogue about how America in the 20s was booming because women wore short skirts and did what they wanted. And then in the 30s, they got more conservative. And this caused freedom to just go down into the depths of hell. And guess what happened then? Our economy crashed. And that's what happens. And if you don't, lend all of your efforts to other countries, we become a socialist dictator, we become a socialist country, then guess what? Our economy will continue to crash, and that's how the whole world works. It's like the stupidest argument you can imagine, and they're just spitting it out of their mouth. Sickening. You smell like weed. You could smell them through your phone. House passes the SAVE Act, requiring voters to show a form of ID before voting to prove U.S. citizenship. What's crazy to me is like 4 years ago when Biden was letting in all these illegal immigrants, everyone was going, don't worry, they're not going to vote. They can't vote. It's impossible for them to vote. Now we find out in New York and in California, it is a fact. They are voting and they did vote. We know it to be fact. But now, today, fast forward today, they're outright saying that illegal immigrants should be able to vote and that this voter ID is just to get them to not vote. Yeah, we don't want people who are not citizens of this country to vote. Exactly. Yeah, that is why the ID should be shown. I mean, come on. But, now they're pivoting a little bit. Some branch of the Democrats are saying that, oh, well, this is just a way that the Republicans are, making it harder for women to vote. Because, if they get married and change their name and their name doesn't match their ID, they might not be able to vote. But, it's okay. The women could just take off one election cycle off. We'll get everything in order, and then you guys can come back next time. No, there's going to be some that probably will have issues with voting, but if you take care of your business, you should be able to vote. And it's like throwing throwing the water or the baby out with the bathwater. It's like, yeah, okay, there could be some issues with that, but should we then just not require voter ID and let illegal immigrants vote? So, some financial news. NVIDIA on Monday announces plans to manufacture its artificial intelligence supercomputers entirely in the US for the first time. So it's already happening. It is kind of worrying, though. I know people are talking about jobs and stuff like this. I mean, another reason why we want manufacturing here is because COVID exposed us to, like, if we don't manufacture things here, then guess what? We don't have access to them in times of, like, COVID. And what about in times of war? We're highly exposed to not having access to our own products because they're not manufactured here. So that's another aspect. It's for security reasons that we want to manufacture things. People are talking about jobs, jobs, jobs. Which jobs, by the time they get the manufacturing back here, we'll probably all be, working on robots. So maybe not so much jobs, but then the people who are getting the jobs will probably then learn how to work on the robots. So it will benefit us. Local news, AOC and Bernie Sanders is set to come to Bakersfield. That's going to be today, and we're actually going to go, some of the young Republicans, me, myself, we're going to go and just kind of analyze things, maybe, throw a few blows, no, verbal blows, and have a good time there, hopefully, and we'll see who's all there. You're going to go there and see that, these people, they say, eat the rich, right? But it's like the rich pays 40% of our taxes. 40%. Whereas, no, sorry, 1% of the rich, 1% of this country pays 40% of the tax burden. 40%. None of those people are the 40%. And yet they're complaining about tax dollars. Not that we don't spend tax dollars, but that Elon Musk is cleaning up the tax. We're paying tax and our government's not spending it effectively. And that's what he's doing. And they're complaining about that when they don't even pay the tax. They don't even pay the majority of taxes. I mean, it's silly. It just goes into, like the history of our country and the history of the West has been that we've centralized ourselves around the church to solve issues. And now that we pay our taxes are so high to take care of all of our issues in society, we're becoming less effective at doing those things. And there's rampant fraud. In the past, churches, in Christianity, Christianity's one of its main purposes, or one of the main things that, is an emergence of Christianity, is that we take care of the sick and the poor and the homeless, right? That's their main reason. And when people would go to church, they pay their tithes, pay their offering, and then guess what? Those churches would go out into the community and help the community get and heal. And we know that they're the most effective at doing this. They're the most effective of getting people off drugs. That's what AA is. AA is a Christian-based program, and it's the most effective program. But you know what our country does? They say, well, there's a separation between church and state. And so instead of empowering the churches to take care of these people, no, we're going to instead pay a 26-year-old girl who has a psychology degree to go on our streets, talk to these homeless people, have a great conversation with them, pat them on the back, maybe give them a hug, and then give them a clean meth pipe, because she determines that the reason they're sick is not because they're doing meth, it's because that they have a dirty meth pipe, and that's the reason they're getting sick. So let's supply them with a bunch of meth pipes. That's a great idea. And let's not help out the church in any way. Let's give them all the money, and then they're protected by unions who then go to the governments, the local, county, city governments, and they protest to get raises for these people. I mean, it makes no sense. Their turnaround rate is dismal, no doubt, right? What does a 26-year-old girl from college know anything about getting people off drugs and doing the right thing? I mean, come on, you guys, it's so simple. We got to empower the church. The church knows how to do it. It's like, so for me, I'm a business owner, right? And I actually work in this industry, so I have hands-on experience in this. The industry gets bigger, right? And we know that to be a fact. We know there's fraud within it. We know that homeless sites, people that take care of the homeless people that are getting paid by the government, federal grants and things, they expand, or they exacerbate the numbers of homeless people that they have. Why? So they can get more funding. So we know that's occurring. So it's not an efficient way of dealing with the homeless. And in my case, I mean, we had a guy the other day. I sent out the guys to go clean up an area in Oildale, and this guy beats the crap out of his girlfriend with a hockey stick, right? So then we're all like, oh my God, this is crazy. He runs out in the middle of the street and he's waving at cars, like hitting them with a hockey stick. And then a guy's like, I'm going to be a hero, some other homeless guy. And he grabs a crowbar and takes off after him. The guy rips the crowbar out of the other guy's hand and beats the crap out of him with a hockey stick, and then continues to do it. Cops show up, he gets arrested, yada, yada. But who do you think is going to deal with that situation better? A psychologist that's 26 years old that has hardly no life experience? Or maybe a pastor of a church, or maybe someone who the pastor of the church enlists and trains in order to take care of that person? Who do you think is going to do a better job? It's pretty obvious to me, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just worked up because I missed church this Sunday. That's why I'm a little upset. When you miss church, you tend to get, evil tends to get to you a little more. So I definitely need to not miss church. I'm sick. I'm still kind of sick. You can kind of hear it in my voice, but this is the Paint the Town Red podcast. I hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday.